Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Comfort Circle. Today, we're joined by a very special guest who is a living kidney donor. And we're so honored to have you, Nicole. Could you give a little bit of introduction?
Absolutely, yes. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so privileged to be here. As you mentioned, my name is Nicole Johnson, and in October of 2022, I donated a kidney to my uncle.
That's super cool. Like, what do you do? Are you an athlete or?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. I am very active. I was a dual sport athlete in college and remained active all through my life with weightlifting, a lot of running, some women's flag football, which is my favorite. And I'm actually moving into professional tackle women's football this year. So, very excited to be a part of that. And it's funny because after donating my kidney, it's almost like my life became even more active. And I'm so excited that this journey has really led me here because donating a kidney to save a life was really the most rewarding thing that I could have ever experienced. And now it's like everything else that I get to do is icing on the cake, and I feel fantastic.
Yeah, and I feel like you seem to always be linking it back to that as well, which is amazing.
I really do. Yeah, I think it's a really powerful testament to the ability of the human body to adjust, to um, heal, and in our own lifetime evolve to meet the demands that we place on it based upon the way that we want to live our lives.
Yeah, you're so right about that. I just have like a few questions for you, and I guess I'll get right into it.
That sounds
So,
great.
my first question is that when you first got that message asking you if you want to be a donor, what went through your mind?
Oh gosh, this is one of my favorite stories to tell. I was scrolling through Facebook even before a family member reached out to ask, and I saw a post from a second cousin that said, please consider donating. Here's the link. And I had this just sensation that was like, that's you, Nicole. But I just kept scrolling in that moment. When we get kind of wrapped up into the content, I'm like, oh, I'll bookmark it. I'll come back later to that post and
Yeah.
start the process. But I never did. I never bookmarked it. I just continued on with my life. And several months later, actually, I got a text message from my aunt, and she's like, "Hey, Nicole, hope you're doing well. I was coaching a volleyball tournament at the time, so she was very, like celebratory of like, I hope your volleyball tournament's going well. By the way, have you considered becoming a donor for your uncle?" And it was like, oh my gosh, yes, thank you so much for reaching out to me. I had forgotten all about it. Please send me the link. So she had sent me the link. I did it right there. I didn't make any excuses. I literally just completed the questionnaire from my phone. And it really is just this general questionnaire about like lifestyle, blood type, how old you are. And I submitted it. And the following morning, I got a call from the kidney donation coordinator, and right off the bat, I answered the call, and she's like, "Are you sure this is your exact blood type? Because I'd like to get you tested right away." And I'm like, "Okay, let's go."
Amazing.
It was like
Yeah.
it was sort of surreal because I had known that it was going to be me. I knew that I was living an active lifestyle. I just had a feeling that everything was going to just fall into place and that's really how the process went from beginning to the end. So within 3 months of just that phone call, I was on the operating table donating a kidney to my
Wow.
uncle.
Yeah, I think, I guess my question is that, like, how did you know that you wanted to be a donor? That's such a big life decision to make.
True. Yeah. And that's a really that's a really interesting way to phrase it. Like, yes, I was a donor. Yes, I received sort of this calling that it was going to be me, but why did I want to? Um, I think to me, knowing that my uncle's life was literally hanging by a thread, he did not have any prior really like major health issues. So it was kind of confusing to see that he had been suffering for so long. And it was to the degree where it was like at 7% function. And it was like now or never, Nicole. Like, what are you made of? And so for me, it really boiled down to what kind of person did I want to be on this planet in this lifetime? If I stand for love and if I strive to be somebody who can hold space and be caring about others, where does that end? Does it does it have an end, really? And I discovered that if I didn't want my ability to serve others, to love others, to live in a capacity that supports other people's lives in any way that I can, then it couldn't stop there. It couldn't
Mm.
stop at, well, I just wouldn't give a body part. No, it couldn't stop there. And so I was really just trusting that as I was getting tested, as I was going to the labs and the procedures prior to actually being scheduled for the operation, I was just trusting the process, trusting the physicians, and also just trusting that my heart was in the right place. And no one ever knows the answer to anything. We don't know if when we're driving to work, we're going to make it there safely. We don't even know if we're going to wake up the next day. I certainly didn't know if I was going to wake up after going to sleep on that operating table, right? But it's like that shouldn't stop me. That's my belief, and the person that I want to be is that shouldn't stop me being the person that I want to be in this life.
I think that's truly amazing.
Thank
And
you.
there should be more people like you in this world. I feel like a lot of people, when they're thinking of taking a decision like this, they imagine the biggest part of the recovery from this to be physical, like your body healing after that and how it's going to adjust to one organ. But I saw on your profile that you had like a spiritual journey after recovering. So,
Yes.
how is that? Like, can you elaborate a little bit?
Absolutely. Yes. And thank you so much for taking the time to really look at that. The spiritual journey for me has, it started a little bit prior to donating, which really got me to the place to be very intentional about how I walk on the earth. And that led me to having a desire to be a human that channels love, whatever that looks like and whatever that feels true to me in that moment. But as I was healing from the process, I did a lot of meditations, a lot of breath work, and a lot of things to support the recovery of the system. The body will do what it can do in the moment with how you're feeding it, how you're hydrating it, how you're being active. But additionally, there are ways that we can master our own energies through meditative practices, through yogic practices that can just add support to that process and help my system return back to equanimity as best as it could.
Yeah, that's true. And I think a lot of people don't look at it that way as well. So,
Yeah, yeah. So we discovered one another on Instagram. If you notice on Instagram where you message me, my username is Spaceship Mastery. And
yes.
in my yogic studies, I learned that the body is a sophisticated spaceship, but we're born without an instruction manual. And so when I started to do my breath work and my Kriya yoga, I started to realize that as we're learning how to kind of turn the knobs and press the buttons and use the dials of the body and however we can to operate it, there are certainly ways that we can master it as a machine, because it is the most sophisticated machine on this planet. It's the spaceship through which we navigate this world. So that really supported how I viewed my healing. Is how well I maintain my vehicle is going to determine the quality of my life moving forward.
Are you saying that that is what gave you motivation to build your strength physically after you survived that surgery and you were able to help your uncle?
It certainly added to it, yeah. So it gave me the strength to make it through the really scary emotional part of actually donating. I have
Mm.
2 children. So at the
Right.
time, my daughter was 14 and my son was 9. And the surgery was scheduled for Halloween, which is
Oh,
a really prolific American holiday for kiddos to have fun, to dress up in
yeah.
costume and to get some candy. But I was first, number one, thankful that they could be in a playful mindset, when
Mm.
mom was going to be giving a kidney. But I remember, prior to the anesthesia going into my body, really having to stick to the breath work that I learned through my spiritual practices to just support my ability to emotionally cope, because that was the most terrifying thing. Was I know that I was going to be put under in anesthesia, and I was praying that I would wake up, or that everything was going to go successfully through the actual procedure, which was about 8 hours long. I think it's minimally 8 hours long. But it really allowed me to not panic in that moment.
I think definitely if you have that mindset, it's easier to push yourself back into it as well. So
Definitely.
there's like a lot of misinformation about organ donation out there. What do you feel as someone who has gone through it? What is a myth that you wish people understood more?
Are there some myths that pop out into your head? Actually, when I became an organ donor, I think some of the things that were were shared with me were majority of the positives, because they really, of course, want to sell you on
Yeah.
this idea of donating, right? They're not going to say, oh, hey, by the way, be careful of this. And so I think more of, instead of myths, for me it was like, oh, things that didn't really feel really good or go as perfectly as I had thought they did. So let's
Mhm.
first let's start with some myths that you're aware of, and then I'll go into
Yeah,
some of the learned.
I'll tell you some myths. All right. So the first one is that organ donation disfigures the body.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so I am a model here for a lot of local designers in Arizona. I runway model, I do editorial, and I also do some artistic nude. So I knew that portions of the scarring could show. But I actually have no disfiguration of the body. My scarring healed up nicely. So it's actually really hard to tell where the wounds are of the actual
Yeah.
procedure. And my body is in better physical and aesthetic shape now than ever before. And I don't think that it was caused by becoming a donor. I think it's caused a lot by what I did after the donation, with staying healthy and fit and honing in on my nutrition. But absolutely no disfiguration whatsoever.
Great to hear. Another myth is if I donate a kidney, I won't be able to have children later.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I do remember. So was, 39 at the time that I donated. And I did have conversations with the surgeons about, my age, my intention to have kids, and I already had 2 kids. So that was one of the questions that came up. I did not intend on having more, but there were no warnings or discouragement if I decided to have more. It really was just like, okay, if you do decide to have another child, make sure that you're really open with talking with your, medical staff, so that they're aware of how to treat you, because there are certain medications that we don't want to put in the system that only has one kidney, so that we don't add any additional strain to the really filtration job of the kidney.
That makes sense. A third myth, yeah, that you will become weak and have health problems later in life.
Yeah. Okay. I did a lot of research prior to donating because it was really important to me to continue to live an active life. And I saw a lot of high intensity, even endurance athletes, success stories. And so that gave me a lot of hope and a lot of trust that the way that your body responds with one kidney after donating, it really has a lot to do with your ability to stay on track with feeding your body healthy foods, living an active lifestyle, hydrating, daily, which is the same like life wisdom that any of us will receive. And
Yeah,
how do you live the
exactly.
best life? Well, you eat healthy, you work out.
Yeah, that is so true. Kidney donors end up needing a transplant themselves.
Okay, so I have it's oh, I forgot to mention, I have a second cousin in my family who also donated to a family member years back, probably about 20 years ago. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, he was really brave.
Yeah.
Um, and he has been living fantastic. He's definitely not as active as me, but he has not needed any, additional kidney or any transplant help. As for myself, I am 3 years post donating, and I'm working with a kidney specialist to ensure that my lifestyle and diet don't put too much strain on the kidney. But I haven't had any experiences with, requiring any other forward planning other than just kind of monitoring it, my blood work. And it might happen. I think here's the twist is when you have two kidneys, does that mean that you take less care of your body than when you have one? And it's kind of like, no, um, because you still want to treat the system as if you want to live the best life, which requires, making smart, healthy choices for it. But with just one kidney, you don't, have an extra one to fall back on. And so just ensuring that, like, when you're driving your car and you have one tire that's been, on your car for 5 years and the other three are fairly, newer, you have to monitor that one tire a little bit closer. You know,
Yeah.
you have to have it serviced a little bit more. You have to be prepared to, address it more frequently. Um, but I wouldn't say that it increases your need. I think the way that your body is going to live is really how you treat it. And there's a lot of elements that you can't control. So if a fortune teller could tell me 5 years from now, your one kidney is going to start to fail, um, that's something that none of us can ever know.
True.
so so making a decision based upon this story that you can make up in your head, I think really just can prevent you from living the fullness of what this life is.
Yeah,
And if
that's
that
true.
came, if the need for a kidney transplant came, I would lean into it openly and, you know, be as brave as I can in the scariness of that, stick with my
Hmm.
spiritual practices and meditations, eat healthy, and do the best that I can, which is what any of us do in this life.
That's good advice for anyone.
Yes.
What is one takeaway that you would want someone to go from your story with?
Oh, I love that question. For me, it really boils down to every step that we take walking on this earth is so precious. And every second of this life is a gift that we can't just assume that we're going to have. And so really truly asking yourself, what type of presence do I want to be on this earth, no matter what the decision is that I need to make? What am I communicating to the world about the person that I am? And am I sticking to that version of who I want to be, no matter how scary the decision is?
That's really beautiful, actually. I think I would write that down as a quote.
Oh, I love that. Hopefully you could like condense it to fewer words.
No,
We can put
it's
it on like a
fun.
t-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. That was it for the questions for the podcast, but I just have two more things that I want to ask you in the end.
Okay.
Uh, so like our brand, Inspired Comforts, which I work for,
Mhm,
we basically make adaptive and recovery clothing for people going through chemotherapy, dialysis, post-surgery, and
mhm.
it's clothing specifically adapted to them. So my question is, did you know what this means before this podcast?
No, I didn't. And actually, when I looked into the brand, I was like, this is really smart. Because
Yeah.
when I was recovering, I had a hard time finding things that were comfortable that I
Yeah.
could wear and not look like some like grandma or some like, you know, like I really was excited to see that this brand existed.
That is great to know. I'm just gonna share my screen and I'm gonna show you two pictures. You have to guess what you think this is, okay?
Okay. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. So IV, I don't know, the fistula in the
Yeah,
arm, um,
yeah,
right?
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it. That's one for one. Okay, just one more.
Okay, I see that it still has access to the arm, but it looks like it opens up for like a port access or something that is affixed to the body to help the medical staff like
All
access the
right.
system.
Yeah, it's pretty close. This is a post-surgery recovery shirt. You know how
Okay.
people have trouble dressing? So this has snaps where you can just like snap it
Oh,
open and wear it,
that
even if
is so
it's
good.
plain now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love your reaction. That's
It's so
literally
yeah,
everything.
because like okay, the recovery was challenging in the first
Yeah.
2 weeks
Yeah.
during the recovery. So one thing that they didn't tell me during the evaluation process was like, hey, we're gonna fill your cavity up with gas to make you really, really big and bloated so that there's room within your abdominal cavity for us to even access the organ. And so after the surgery, your intestines kind of seize up because they didn't like being touched. So what happens is your whole intestinal tract stops operating for a couple of days until it feels safe enough to continue to process. And so I had to go back into the hospital for constipation because my abdominal cord didn't continue to function, and I just kept getting more and more bloated, and it kind of looked pregnant. And I was like, y'all, you could have told me this before the surgery. But luckily I was able to get it all flowing again. But
Yeah.
having that shirt with the buttons would have been perfect because anything that I brought to wear was just not going over the body at that time. Oh, this was really fun. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
having me on.
Thank you so much for making the time. I actually had such a great time talking to you, and you have such wonderful energy, and I hope you get to do great things in life.
I really appreciate that. And thank you for all that you and your company are doing to help people continue on with their lives, even after really big experiences with, medical procedures. It's really important that we are supported. So we appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was lovely speaking to you, Nicole. Bye.
Bye.